אם נצליח לעבור את החסמים הפסיכולוגיים, הציבור ידחוף את ההנהגות לעשות שלום. ולזה אנחנו מכוונים. אנשים לא מבינים מה יהיה כשיהיה פה שלום. איזה דבר נפלא יהיה.
Paradoxical intervention as a way to solve the conflict.
My name is Roman Saranga, and I'm a creative director. I work in advertising for 15 years, and in 2012, Atara came to me and asked me to join a very interesting project.
I met Yitzhak because he wanted to make a peace project, and the first thing that we discovered is that people do not want peace.
Yitzhak first approached me 3 years ago and said that he've heard about our work on psychological barriers to conflict resolution and asked if we can advise him on ways or innovative ways to address these barriers within the context of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
Why there is no peace between the Israelis and Palestinians? What is the reason? What stopped us, both societies, Israelis and Palestinians, to make peace?
We know from work in social psychology that when people hold very strong beliefs about certain issues, you cannot try to convince them by simply providing them with the opposite ideas.
So we made an advertisement campaign for the conflict. We actually branded the conflict. We made those ads to show people all the advantages in the conflict and actually convince them how much they need the conflict. Yitzhak raised some budget which was good enough only for a local campaign. So we targeted one small town in the center of Israel, Givat Shmuel. The main medium was the internet. Pre-rolls, Facebook ads, banners, and we supported it with street billboards and street activities. We did pre- and post research to measure the efficiency of the campaign, and the results were unmistakable. The Givat Shmuel group, especially the rightist and the extreme rightist among them, are now clearly less conservative regarding the conflict. They hold weaker opinions of the Palestinians' sole responsibility for the continuation of the conflict. They are less supportive of aggressive policy towards the Palestinians, and they are more supportive of compromising policy. The bottom line is that the people of Givat Shmuel, after the conflict campaign, are 27% less rightists.
Only after you're being confronted with a solid truth that you're addicted to the conflict, that you need the conflict, that you're consuming the conflict, this is the only way to drop it, to give it up. And probably before peace, you have to give up the conflict.
I truly believe that we now have a psychological tool that can change attitudes among the Israeli society.
Over 40 years, with all the efforts to find a peace solution, that we got a chance to make a difference in our region.
I hope someday you join us, and the world will live as one.
Psychology professor Idan Halperin studies the science of changing minds. It's an uphill battle in his country, Israel, home to the intractable struggle between Israelis and Palestinians.
One of the reasons most traditional peace interventions do not work is that we have two groups of people with opposing views trying to reason with each other.
Israelis and Palestinians argue like humans everywhere. One side expresses an opinion, the other counters it.
When someone tells you something that you disagree with, the most automatic reaction is to try to confront him with the counter message.
But we've all been in arguments where reason gets you nowhere. For deeply held beliefs, say for gun control or abortion, science has shown that counter messages can actually be counterproductive.
Because basically their beliefs, their attitudes are part of their identity, and then anything that contradicts what they believe in sounds to them or looks to them like a threat. In psychology, we call this state of mind frozen.
This kind of freezing can happen around any tightly held belief, and it happens with terrorists. Their beliefs are sacred to them, and they become frozen, resisting any argument no matter how rational. As a young man, Eran looked around his homeland. He saw a conflict seemingly without end, and a sea of frozen minds.
I was very seriously injured in the Israeli army, and I decided that this is my mission. We cannot just accept it as the reality. I mean, this cannot be the only situation in which we can live in.
But how do you change minds without having an argument? Eran and his students at Tel Aviv University had an idea.
We are going to tell people with extreme views, you know what? You're right.
Eran calls it paradoxical thinking. It's like mental jujitsu. You use people's own opinions against them. Let's go back to a rivalry we already know. Say you have a friend who is a rabid fan of the Rattlers. You could tell him how awesome the Eagles are, but this will just freeze his love of the Rattlers in place. However, if you use the paradoxical thinking technique, you tell him how awesome the Rattlers are. You tell him it's the best team ever, better than family, better than love, better than anything. Overwhelmed, your friend might reconsider his love of his team. Eran wanted to test his theory on Israel's most pressing issue, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. So he made some ads about it. It's meant to shock. The text reads, "Without it, we would never be just. For justice, we probably need the conflict."
We took the core ideas that Israel believe in and we practically took them to the extreme.
Israelis, by and large, believe their side in the conflict is just. But the ads concluded that not only was the conflict just, but Israelis needed the conflict.
For the sake of these ideas, to preserve these ideas, we have to preserve the conflict. And this is an absurd in the eyes of most Israelis.
Eran started the experiment small, with a focus group of conservative Israelis.
While they were watching these videos for the first time, Israelis got really, really angry. But as the time went by, and as they saw these video clips again and again and again, they started what we call a process of unfreezing.
When bombarded by views even more extreme than their own, the test subjects started to question their own positions. Even those who had said they would never compromise with Palestinians suddenly signaled a willingness to talk. It seemed to work with Iran's small sample. How would it work in a real Israeli town?
It is called the Givat Shmuel, a city mainly dominated by Israeli rightist and centrist people. And we tried to implement this intervention on this entire city of Givat Shmuel.
Eran and the other researchers handed out flyers on the streets, put up billboards, and targeted the video clips to people in the neighborhood who were online. What they discovered was a change beyond their expectations.
Again, in some cases, at the beginning, people got very angry, but then when they discussed these issues, when they talked about them, when they re-exposed themselves to these ideas, suddenly they started reconsidering their positions.
In fact, the intervention worked best with people who had the most hardline views. 1 year later, Iran found the shift in opinions in the test group had held steady.
We hope that by exposing more and more people to this paradoxical thinking intervention, we can help them consider more seriously positive or peaceful solutions to the conflict.
To date, hundreds of attempts to change the stances of public opinion in Israel and Palestine were tried without success. We have a working approach that was scientifically proven. Come join us in making the success of this project happen.